So in today's video, we're going to talk about not only what a BRRRR strategy is, but how you can F up a BRRRR. There are a lot of really good YouTube videos on BRRRR. Some of them I like, some of them I don't like. One of the best ones was done by Brandon Turner of BiggerPockets. So if you don't know, BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, and repeat. So the very first strategy of a BRRRR is to buy. Now that's finding a property that's undervalued and then can be rehabbed and sold for more. The best way to do a BRRRR is OPM or other people's money, all cash, but in some cases you might have to do financing and only use 20% of your own money and 80% of someone else. What's really important here is that the math works. As you guys know, I always talk about, it's always about the math. What you buy has to sell for a lot more than what you put into it. The second part of a BRRRR strategy is rehab, and you better know what these costs are before you buy it. This strategy can vary widely from one investor to another. One investor might put $1,000 into a property and another might put in $50,000. Oftentimes the rehab can be a big piece of your profit. As you guys know right now, we have massive labor issues and massive supply chain issues, so these rehab costs are going up as we speak. The biggest issue here is time. So it could be 1 month, 2 months, 6 months, a year, and a lot of it's going to depend on your level of experience and your relationships with these subcontractors. The third R in BRRRR is rent. And obviously you want to rent out the property to get cash flow. And again, the math has to work. You need to know what the rents are in this area before you buy. It all boils down to the math, and you should not wait to find out what the rents are until after you buy. The third R is refinance. Now this can be tricky, and you must have this figured out before you buy. You want to make sure that your lender knows what you're doing, knows that there's some equity that you're creating, and you also need to know that most lenders are going to lend only 70% to you, so you have to calculate that in the math. Now there are some rules here, especially with lenders. Some won't let you refinance for up to 6 months to a year, so you better make sure that you figure this out before you buy. And as you guys know, through all the videos we do, you should always try to fix your loan long term. The fourth and final R, of course, is repeat, and this is financial freedom. This is where you get infinite returns. This is where you want to be infinite, and this is when you pull your cash back out and do it again and repeat this process until you are financially free. Now I'm going to tell you how to mess up a BRRRR, and that is what most people do is they cut out this piece right here. What a lot of people do here is they sell and they don't consider all the costs that are associated with this strategy. So let's take a look at a real life example that I personally bought. A flipper or someone with a short-term strategy bought a place for $380,000 in a neighborhood where the prices were $500. So it looked really good. They went and got a hard money loan for $320,000. The reason I know this is because I bought it and I saw what the loan was. I also saw what he paid, and I know that he had $60,000 down, and he also did about $20,000 in rehab. Now let's fast forward to me as the buyer. More of a long-term strategy. As you guys know, I'm a cash flow guy. Short-term cash flow, long-term cash flow. I negotiated a price to $480,000. Let's do some simple math. It's in escrow for $480,000. He pays off the $320,000, which in this case is a hard money loan. He has the $60,000 of either his cash or someone else's cash in the deal, plus another $20,000 on the rehab. High math suggests that they're going to net around $80,000 on this one deal. So here's a summary of the deal. Here's a summary of my deal. Short-term versus long-term. His loan is $320,000. It's at an interest rate of 9%. Now these hard money lenders typically have about a 6-month minimum, but it could be as long as 1 year on that money. So 6-month minimum on $320,000 is $14,400. That's a cost to the deal. There's also loan point. Now, I put it in there at 1% or $3,200, but it could be negotiated lower, especially if you're doing this for a living. And the third thing, of course, are real estate commissions. In this particular case, my realtor found the deal, and I know that she got 3% as a commission. These three things can, of course, be negotiated, but these are numbers that you need to consider, and this is what happened on this deal. Now, as you can see, per the math, there's $46,400 of expenses associated with this deal that we haven't seen yet. So let's break this down. $80,000 net minus $46,400 in costs that we just covered brings you to a net of $33,600. But wait, there's also tax. What I did is I just took 20% of $33,600, which of course is not perfectly accurate, but there is going to be a capital gain tax. For this, I use $6,720 that the IRS is going to take their piece. That gives us a net of $26,880. And guess what, folks? That's very different from the $80,000 that you're looking at from the very beginning. So the flaw in this BRRRR method was the rent versus the sale. So a lot of your flippers out there are going to say, hey, that's a 33% return. And it is. Nothing wrong with that. But guess what he's got to do? Got to go out and do it again. Now let's look at a long-term method, one that's going to create you infinite return and cash flow passive income. That's what we all want. So I bought this property $480 cash, and then I was able to put $330,000 on it after I purchased it. So now I got 150 grand into this deal. The best thing is that this guy rehabbed it for me. So all I had to do was move in a tenant. I knew the rents in this area were about $3 grand. My loan costs were about $1,500, about $500, and other costs nets me about $1,000 a month on the average. That's about 12 grand. So if you take 12 grand a year into the 150, you have about an 8% cash on cash return, which is what I'm looking for. So let's talk about the strategy. One, I was able to take cash, put it into a hard asset during this very inflationary time. Two, I was able to use other people's money in the form of debt on a cash out refinance to get my $330,000 back, and I ended up with $150,000 in the deal, which, by the way, does not have to be just your money. So as you guys know, I'm a long-term investor. So I was able to use my own cash at $480 for a quick close on a deal that was already rehabbed, and I knew I could get $3,000 a month. The next step is I used other people's money in the form of debt to get $330,000 of that back, which left me with $150,000 in the deal of cash. So in my younger years, and it might be a little flashier to have these short-term gains and short-term wins to be able to buy things, that's over here. But quickly you realize that the slow and steady wins the race, and building a net cash flow and financial freedom for you in the long term, you eventually can completely not do this at all. You'll eventually see the wisdom in this strategy and the short-term mentality in this strategy. So please hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. They really help, and they motivate me to do more videos like this for you. We'll see you guys in the next video.